was that first moment?
It was never a question whether or not I wanted to be. Living a life where I wake up in the morning and I can't wait to get out of bed and live that life. I think we're pretty damn close, to be honest. Lamborghinis and Formula cars at 13.
Other thing that's happening where you're the managing director of EDX.
What else are we here for?
An accomplished Canadian racer with success in karting, Formula 4, and international prototype racing. Also the managing director of EDX. This young man has had tremendous success both as a racer and as a leader. Welcome to Journeys of Success, Marco Kacic.
Thank you so much. Really happy to be here.
Tell me right away, what was that first moment when you knew that racing was what you were going to do?
To be honest, there wasn't really a moment that it wasn't there. Ever since I can remember, that was always the plan. That was always what I did. I was born straight into the sport. I think the first time I was at the track was in my mom's belly. I was back in a crib every weekend after that. So it was never a question whether or not I wanted to be at the racetrack.
As you know, this podcasting is really about exploring the journeys of success, kind of the inner success that people take to get to where they are. How would you define success?
It's funny, I think everyone defines their success a little differently. That's what's so interesting about it. I know myself, I heard something probably 3 or 4 years ago and it really touched with me. And the idea of success is when you wake up in the morning and you're excited to get out of bed. And I liked that a lot because it really touches on the fact that for everyone it's a little bit different. I know for me, I know the things I like to do, the things I enjoy. And so, you know, living a life where I wake up in the morning and I can't wait to get out of bed and live that life, that's success to me.
And is that the life you're living?
Getting there. I think we're pretty damn close, to be honest. There's things that aren't perfect, but there's always going to be. So I think it's safe to say I'm living that, yeah.
Awesome. What are the areas of your life that you feel successful in, whether it's racing related or anything else?
I mean, the easiest place to start is friends, families, and relationships. I think I have an incredible circle of people around me, both in my family, my friends, my relationships, everyone who's with me at the racetrack, everyone who's with me at home. When I go away for a race or for work, I love who I'm there with. I come back home and I love who I come back to see. So, you know, no complaints there whatsoever. I think I've absolutely hit what I want to hit for success in that area.
Thank you for watching our podcast. The easiest way to support us would be to like our video and subscribe to our channel. Thanks so much. Was there ever a time when you actually weren't racing? It sounded like you started. How old were you when it actually all began?
I was 5 years old the first time I drove a kart, so pretty young. There wasn't much time I wasn't driving. First race was at 8 years old, and I was racing Lamborghinis and Formula cars at 13, so it all came up pretty quick.
But so now you're not just racing, you're also, it sounds like you've got this other thing that's happening where you're the managing director of EDX. Tell me, what's that about?
Yeah, absolutely. So I went from the racing side over the last couple of years. I started doing some more coaching with drivers. That was in some Formula cars, some low-level sports cars, and also karting. And I ran into a couple karting clients who were interested in starting their own team, and we decided to partner up and start EDX. So it started as a karting team and grew into a Formula team and all-around motorsports hub that does so many different pieces. I started out as well with that company as the team principal, running the racing team. And this year I've actually leveled up to the managing director. So I'm managing the entire company, multiple teams across karting and cars.
It's so interesting to be talking to someone who's stepped into success at such a young age. Because normally when I would ask questions like this, I'm asking people who maybe stepped into what they really want to do so much later in life. So a question that I would ask someone is like, what was life like before they stepped into their path or success? But that might be hard for you to relate to, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I would say in my journey to success as an individual, like I said, most of it is there, but I think part of that journey is the fact that it's never going to reach the end. I'm always going to be striving to build a little more in my life. So even right now, in a way, even though I'm successful now, I'm still pre-successful of what I want to do in 5 years. And what I want to do in 5 years is pre-successful of what I want to do 5 years later. I don't view it as one static, hey, I hit it, I'm done, you know?
Well, so what drives that pursuit?
What else are we here for? right? The way I see it, we're only around for so many years. The best way to spend that is finding things that I want to accomplish and work my way to them. You know what I mean? If it's not hard to get there, I really don't see it as worth working towards, if that makes sense. So I really like setting a goal and accomplishment for myself and working my way there, whether that be in racing, in business, or in finance, whatever it might be.
Do you feel like in all those different aspects that you just mentioned, racing and leadership and entrepreneurship, what is the mindset that you had to step into in order to be successful in all of those things?
I'm sure you've heard it before. It has to be a growth mindset. It has to be the mindset of you go into it ready to lose and lose again and lose again and learn from it, because that's the only way anyone got to where they are, right? I've definitely lost more than I've won, and so many decisions I made that were the wrong ones, and I learned from them and corrected them. It's the only reason, I am where I am now.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think that, that speaks volumes of who you are. A lot of times it's those failures or those stumbling blocks that kind of knock people down, and sometimes it's really hard to get back up and keep going and keep pursuing. What do you do in those moments when the hit or the loss is really hard and heavy, and you start having those thoughts of, should I keep going or not?
That's when the success in your circle is so important, because when you're alone in those moments, it's virtually impossible to work through, to be honest, from what I believe. Luckily, I've never had to be alone in those moments. I've always had my friends in those moments, my families, my inner circle of people who, they're there to support me when something doesn't go right. The first thing they say is, awesome, how can you learn from it? How can we better it next time? Not, hey, you suck, So that's where having that circle helps you keep pushing through those moments.
So having like that kind of core support group that people are cheering you on and who believe in you and see you.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, a saying I've heard since I was so young was always that you are, who you're around, right? The 5 people you spend the most time with is who you'll become. And so if you spend your time surrounded by 5 people who put you down or believe that every mistake is a failure or that you should give up, yeah, you're really quickly going to go down that path. But if the 5 people closest to you just reinforce the idea of, yeah, make those mistakes, learn from them, try again, lose money here, mess up that there, and learn from it. Finish 5th in that race so you can win the next one. You can't help but succeed, right?
Nice. That's a pretty powerful mindset that you've already embraced. This is a self-funded venture, and if you would like to help us in creating more stories of success, please visit and donate at Ko-fi. When you started a lot of these ventures, whether it be racing or maybe starting your own business venture might be a better example, was there any inner mindset shifts that you had to create within yourself in order to fully step into taking on such a big venture?
Yeah, I mean, every day there is. To be honest, there's always something new that comes with it. I'm trying to think off the top of my head what are the biggest ones, but there's just been so many. I mean, especially going from as a driver so young, when I was 12, 13, 14, coming up in racing, I had so much responsibility, but at the same time I had none. I'd be at the track and the weights on my shoulders, running expensive cars, working with sponsors is a lot. And I had to be really mature and really above my years at that time. But I'd also have the advantage of I come home and it could almost be the opposite. I didn't have much responsibility. I lived at home with my parents. I didn't have to worry about food or bills or any of these things. And obviously everyone, you have that as a kid, and at some point that switches. You have to get your first job, you have your first apartment, you have to support yourself. And so I went through that transition at the same time as I started running my business. So I wouldn't say it's not even as much of a mindset change for business, but I think everyone has to go through that mindset change somewhere between, high school and, early 20s of, I was a kid, now I need to learn how to be an adult. And doing that at the same time is also needing to run this business. Yeah, it was so many mindset changes, I can't even count them.
If you had to pick like one, I want to use the word mindset, but maybe something like a characteristic or a thought or a pattern or something that you had to work through in order to fully step into
I
your
think
success?
probably one of the things that actually helped me the most with that was I read a book called Atomic Habits, which helped a lot. You always have your habits, but learning to build on them and habit stack, I think helped me a lot step into the role of having so many responsibilities, because ultimately that's what it was. I went from having so few responsibilities to so many so quickly. I mean, everyone works differently, but myself, it was as simple as putting down a list. What are my responsibilities? What are the tasks to make them happen? How can I implement a habit every day that helps me work towards them? That was probably one of the things that helped me the most was, like I said, stepping back, writing it down, building these habits. So, every day I get up and there's a list of things I go through that help me, take notches off. You don't see someone who's successful in one area and not the other. It's almost always if they have their business life figured out or their sports life figured out, the rest of it usually has to follow or it doesn't. You know what I mean? If your personal life is a mess, it's going to translate. And if your business life is a mess, it's also going to translate. You need to be able to balance that, right?
Mm-hmm. I like what you're saying about creating rituals and habits. Are there certain daily rituals or habits that reoccur every day in order for you to keep things moving?
Funny enough, it's the really, really simple ones I found that made the biggest difference for me. It's the washing my face in the morning before I start my work, listening to an audiobook in the morning, getting some knowledge in before you start your day. The 6 a.m. Club, another amazing book I listened to a little bit ago. And I didn't implement it to the T, but I took the ideas and found my own way to implement them, getting up, not 3 minutes before I need to be working, but getting up a good amount of time, get my brain running, then get to work. I mean, honestly, those have been the biggest differences, right? Getting that morning routine in, it just made my day flow so much better.
It sounds like you're really mindful of where you put your attention in the days. Like I know a lot of people who wake up and the first thing they do is scroll on their phone, or they do this or they do that, but everything I hear you saying is some form of growing and expanding your mind. And is that part of your kind of philosophy or your approach of success?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, you're going to get to where you put your time into, right? So if you put your time into scrolling social media, you're going to be really great at it. If you put your time into growing yourself as an individual, you'll do the same. Well, I mean, not to say I definitely have my days, when I'm not on it and I spend that extra few minutes scrolling social media when I probably shouldn't. But at the end of the day, you have to be able to look at yourself and evaluate, because I mean, if you're not really assessing that, you have no way to improve on it. I think that's something that actually came from my racing career a lot, because when you're in the track, when you're in a car, you go out, you do your session, but honestly the work doesn't happen always on the track. So much of it happens immediately after. We review the data, we review the video. We look at exactly what happened, what mistakes we made, what we did right, what we did wrong, and we analyze every bit of it. We assess it, we debrief, then we prepare for the next session. And I think I kind of took that same concept into all the areas of my life, with how I spend my personal life and how I spend my business life, right? I'm always analyzing what were the things that went right, what were the things that went wrong, and how can we change them for tomorrow.
Wow, dude, you sound like you're like 50 years old. How old are you right now?
I am 23 as of 2 weeks ago.
23.
So,
happy belated birthday.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, no, I hear that a lot, that I've got a few years on. It's funny. I always hear from people older than me that I sound older than I am, and the opposite. From those younger than me, I usually hear I sound younger than I am, which is always interesting.
Oh, that's it. I wonder what they're tuning into.
Well, I think it's a matter of also, I spend so much time coaching and working with kids or people who are younger than me, or at least I have in the last 5 years. I've gotten so used to working with different ages that, when I'm working with someone who's 12 years old, I can almost reflect that a bit more and get more on their level, if that makes sense, just because, majority of driving coaches, if you're working with the 12-year-old kid, majority of the coaches that they're going to work with are in their 30s or in their 40s. So to get a chance to work with me when I was 16 or 15 or 18, I'm so much closer to the age and so much more capable to relate to it, which obviously I'm slowly moving out of as I get into my early 20s. But I think that's probably why I've always had that impression on the younger groups.
That's really cool, man. I have so much appreciation when I hear people who are coaching or mentoring other people. What drove you to decide to do that on top of everything else that you're already doing?
I guess, two or three different parts to it. The first one was I wanted to start making an income, right? As you get to, your late teens, you want to be able to, take your girlfriend out or buy that new pair of headphones or whatever it might be. But the reason it was coaching specifically was because I really enjoyed it. I started actually in parkour. I started doing some coaching. I did parkour lessons for quite a few years, and it was, kept me fit, kept me athletic, and I really enjoyed it. And when I saw there was an opportunity to start coaching, I thought, well, hang on, coaching is analyzing and then sharing the information. That's what I've been doing with my racing for years. So it was a perfect thing for me to step into. And once I started working with kids, I did it in parkour for a few years, and then in karting, gained a whole new appreciation for it when I worked with a kid for 2 or 3 years in a row. I had one kid who I worked with for about 2 or 3 years, and this kid, when I first met him, was super quiet, super in his shell. He hadn't really found, he was about, 12 at the time. He hadn't really found what he loved in life yet. He didn't have a crazy great circle or lots of friends, and he kind of found his way into racing, and I worked with him. And 2 years later, this kid was almost unrecognizable. I mean, he was so grown up, so well spoken, so outspoken, had such great friends. The kid is now winning national championships, and it was such a cool experience for me to see that. And I was like, wow, all these years I spent working on my career, and I love it. I love everything I've done with my career. I was so happy to get to share some of that information and then see how it progressed their lives.
Yeah, that's so cool, man. So cool when we can touch people's lives like that.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder in this moment, were there any teachers or mentors in your life that stood out? And if so, what was the best piece of advice or best lesson that they passed on to you? If you would like your business or venture highlighted in an upcoming episode, contact us about sponsorship. We are three producers who are passionate about storytelling and cinematography. We have joined forces to bring you the show, and we are offering our services to help you tell your story. Whether it's a legacy film, a documentary, or any kind of professional production, send us a message and let's explore how we can support you on your journey.